Testing, testing. Okay. All right. So, in my last video, I started making a point about the Pulse Club shooting. So this live stream is just going over what was the... So I was making a point about the Pulse Club shooting. What was I arguing against? Oh, yeah. So, I mean, this is... I'm still kind of... It's still arguing over the overall point that Unnatural Vegan made, that homophobia is based on the act of being gay. I'm going to try not to read directly off of my notes, but I didn't brush up. I've got to leave soon, so I'm just trying to do this real quick. So there were... so among the victims of the among the victims of the Pulse Club shooting, there were straight people. According to a report from advocate.com, I don't have time to pull up the sources right now. I don't know when I'm going to be able to update the sources. If you don't believe me until there are sources, that's totally fine. You could, of course, Google it yourself. I will put up sources at some point. I just have no time. But according to a report from advocate.com, there were straight people at that shooting. If homophobia was just about the act of being gay, wouldn't the shooter have gone up to people, like, actively making out that he assumed were two straight people? Or not two straight people, I'm sorry. Two gay people? Wouldn't if he had made sure to go to a club that, like, just has gay people? Or is the act of going to a gay club the act of being gay? Because if that's the case, then a wide variety of things fall under the umbrella of being gay. And if that's what homophobia is, then maybe we should get rid of homophobia. So even in your own argument, Unnatural Vegan, Swayzee, why are you minimizing it? Why are you acting like, oh, it's just about the act of being gay, which you don't clarify what the act of being gay means? Like, do men who are currently sodomizing each other, are those the only ones who need to worry about getting hated on? Which isn't true at all. We'll get into that in a second. Hateful bigotry has never been because of the act of the group that is receiving the hate. That's not what bigotry is. Elliot Rodger, we're gonna go into other examples of bigotry here. Elliot Rodger killing women because he felt rejected. He didn't go up to a woman who specifically rejected him, though that does happen. That's still misogyny. That's a whole other topic, that it does happen where women get shot and killed because they rejected a man, but that's not because the woman rejected him. It's because of misogyny. It's because of bigotry. So Elliot Rodger killed those women because he hated women. I don't know if he's still alive, but if he is, he still hates women, I'm sure. So it's not about the act of being a woman. There could have been trans men in that sorority who didn't know they were trans men yet. We don't know. I haven't kept tabs on everybody from that shooting. So bigotry has not ever been about the act of being part of that group. There is nothing those women could have done in that sorority to not be killed by Elliot Rodger. Multiple of those women didn't even know who this guy was, and they're getting killed by this guy because of his general hatred towards women, and he decided this group was the target of his hate. It wasn't the act of being a woman. It wasn't the act of rejecting men. It wasn't the act of rejecting Elliot Rodger. This man decided, not even decided, you don't really decide that level of hatred. This man hated women so much, he let out that hatred on those women. And that's misogyny and bigotry, and it's not about the act of being a woman. If we are going to act like homophobia is just about the act of being gay, you then have to apply that to all levels of bigotry, and that just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and if I basically just made the points here. I'm sorry, I gotta look at my notes. I felt this. When you conflate the bullying of vegans and diminish homophobia to the act of being gay, you're diminishing and conflating many forms of bigotry, and it's silencing and harmful. The smear campaign against women in the suffragette movement wasn't about the act of women wanting to vote. It was misogyny. It wasn't about the act of women protesting for their right to vote. You can see those old ads where they're just targeting women and they're just saying heinous shit and they're calling them ugly and they're saying they're literally accusing suffragettes of seducing their husbands into voting for their rights. That's not about the act of women getting the right to vote. It was misogyny. It was bigotry. It was hatred. It wasn't about any act. I have to nail this point. I have to beat this dead horse because this was the one part of the video that bothered me more than anything, and I want to beat this dead horse, and it feels like nobody else is, probably because I've made my point already, but I'm still going, but we're going to keep going into it. We're in too deep now. Yeah, and I made this point. I didn't really make notes that were easy for me to just... I kind of like wrote a rough draft of an essay. Here, and I made some of these points already, but I'm going to reiterate. When a virgin can be denied medical treatment because of the box they checked for sexual orientation, regardless if they've ever acted on that sexual orientation, whatever that means. When a man publicly beats 2 women on the bus for not performing for him sexually, I will put a source for that later. That did happen. I believe it was in the UK. Bisexual women with straight male partners keeping secret about their sexual orientation. I found that. I will link that. I have this all. I just I'm not going to have it ready. But that's a real thing. Bisexual women in straight marriages are the most likely I believe in the adult demographic, to be closeted. And that's not about an act of being gay. Then they're probably closeted due to homophobia. How is being in a straight marriage while you're bisexual the act of being gay? And I guarantee you, these bisexual women are not closeted out of some inane fear they made up. You know, I thought I was gonna show things on the screen. I'm gonna make myself big because I'm just talking at this point. Discriminating on employment just for being LGBT plus. This is an anecdote, but I was sharing with some friends online about this argument, and one of them said that he will never tell his coworkers or his employer that he is bisexual because he is confident he will lose his job, even though he's single right now. But that's the act of being gay, but he could lose his job. The places where anti-discrimination leaves behind bisexual people, this was really interesting. So because of certain LGBT plus language that's intentionally vague to remove rights from everybody, but it also really leaves behind bisexual people. You know what? I might actually pull that up because that had specific wording I wanted to go over. Let's see. Okay. I'm not showing my screen right now. I have to pull it up from, I know I put it in my Discord. Now, if I can remember what keywords I said. I don't talk about bisexual people very often. Aha, here we go. So, let's pull this up. The invisible minority, discrimination against bisexuals in the workplace. I think that's, what does that stand for? Equal opportunity? That's some, I'm not fully educated, I'm sorry. But this part I wanted to go over. Both the Baldwin and Hively opinions endorsed or discussed 3 legal theories to support their holdings: an expansive statutory interpretation of Title VII, the affiliate discrimination theory, and the sex stereotyping theory. However, all 3 of these theories suffer serious flaws and fail to protect bisexual employees. These theories fail to take notice of how discrimination against bisexuals differ from discrimination against homosexuals and other key differences between bisexuals and monosexuals. How is that about the act of being gay? Like, it's not saying bisexuals currently in bisexual relationships are facing discrimination in the workplace. It's bisexuals, regardless of their marital status or relationship status or domestic status. It's literally just the act, or not even the act. Now look, I'm saying act so much, it's happening to me. It's just about being gay. There's no act there. It's just like how when I face misogyny as a woman, it's not because I act as a woman, unless I go present myself in such an androgynous way that people either assume I'm a he or they can't tell, and I do that in every aspect of my life, I'm going to face misogyny. And that's not because I'm presenting as feminine, it's because I just live in the world as a woman. You see me right now? You think I put effort into this? Like, and I still face misogyny as this, and it's not about the act of being a woman. I just am a woman, just like LGBT plus people just are. It's not about any act. Was that all my points? That might have been all my points. Yeah, well, we have some time. Let me pull up the other sources then. Actually, you know what? I might just end this and just put the sources in the description since I've got some time. Yeah, so yeah, I guess that was my entire point. I expected to go on longer. But and to kind of drive the point home on the two women who were beaten on the bus, they were beaten for not acting gay for the benefit of another man. So, and that was homophobia. Or Swayzee, you're going to somehow tell me that that's not homophobia. Or you're going to tell me that them being in a lesbian relationship and existing out in public is the act of being gay. And if that is the case, that means homophobia is very prevalent, and that means we should fight it. So in any way I try to tackle your definition of homophobia, Swayzee, it's so broad that it's a prominent issue and that it's something that needs to be addressed. Instead, you keep presenting it as, well, it's just the act of being gay, so it's a small thing and homophobia is unpopular, so we don't really need to worry about homophobia anymore. It's fine if I use that vegan teacher as my personal beating stick for the LGBT plus community because I want to lecture them for not being intersectional, while Swayzee, I'm too special and I don't need to be intersectional, like you said in both of your Black Lives Matters videos. But LGBT plus people, they need to be intersectional, and you're going to defend it by saying homophobia isn't a big deal. But in the definition of homophobia that you present, it's so broad that any way you attack it, homophobia is a big deal and we need to keep addressing it. And you engaged in bigotry. You really did, Swayzee. You really did. Because if you look at the actual definition of bigotry and you understand that words have meaning and they don't just have whatever meaning you ascribe to them, you engaged in bigotry. Because bigotry is not just directly saying, I hate gay people. And all of these examples, besides maybe the Pulse Club shooting, but believe me, there are many more examples besides that. Besides that one, none of them are directly saying, we hate gay people and we're doing this because we hate gay people. It's systemic, it's coercive, and Swayzee, you know this, and I just wish I would understand why you have decided to do this anti-intellectual grifting, honestly. Like, I hate to accuse of grifting, but if you see the comments on her most recent That Vegan Teacher video, where she's the final three-parter, I fully believe, this is just me fully speculating at this point, and this is all alleged, but I fully believe she has captured the white supremacist audience at this point, because I'm not sure who else is left watching her besides white supremacists. Especially, that's another video, but especially since she went on Twitter and she's like, well, I don't see white supremacism in the vegan community. Freely, Vegan Gains, Fully Raw Christina, all of which are people you used to call out, by the way. Also, on the Fully Raw Christina one, I'm still looking, but I know for a fact she had a video where she called out John Rose and called out Fully Raw Christina for associating with John Rose, who was legit a Nazi, and that video's gone. And, like, nothing Swayzee said was incorrect. Maybe it got taken down for copyright or something. Maybe that's not her fault, but it's down. she's got videos from 3 and 5 years ago calling out other vegans and for being white supremacists, but now in 2020, or maybe it was the beginning of this year. I think it was the beginning of this year. Yeah. Now in January 2021, suddenly there are no white supremacists in veganism. Pretty sure we haven't solved white supremacy in the last 3 years. And Freely and Vegan Gains and Fully Raw Christina, I'm pretty sure still white supremacists, and they're still vegan and still prominent in the vegan community. So I don't. So just Swayzee's just like, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it. And I'm just mocking at this point. But no, I've lost a lot of respect for Swayzee, if you can't tell. But I was listening to my video, and I got distracted when I was making the Pulse Club shooting point, and I didn't have that point fully fleshed out, and I just had to come back on here and flesh out that point. And I have now filled up my time, so I can't put the sources on, but I will try to get the sources in the video soon, or on the description as soon as I can.